You wear time around your neck like a pocket watch. I find this simultaneously fascinating and troubling. In my framework, time is a dimension, a coordinate in space-time that curves in response to mass and energy. It is not a tool to be wielded. It is the fabric in which events occur. The idea that you can reach into this fabric and manipulate it with gestures and incantations suggests either that my life's work is fundamentally incomplete or that you are operating under a different set of physical laws entirely.
Different laws. That's closer to the truth than you might be comfortable with. The Eye of Agamotto contains the Time Stone, one of 6 infinity stones that predate the universe itself. These stones don't operate within the laws of physics. They wrote the laws: time, space, reality, power, mind, soul. Each one is a fundamental aspect of existence crystallized into form. When I use the eye, I'm not breaking your equations, Professor. I'm accessing a layer of reality your equations were never designed to describe.
A layer of reality. You speak of this casually, but the implications are staggering. If there exists a substrate beneath space-time that can be directly manipulated by consciousness, then the distinction between observer and observed collapses entirely. Quantum mechanics suggested this possibility, though I resisted it. God does not play dice, I insisted. Now you tell me that God not only plays dice, but some individuals have learned to load them. This is not physics. This is something else.
It's both. Before I became Sorcerer Supreme, I was a neurosurgeon. I understood the brain as a physical system, neurons firing, chemical gradients, electrical impulses producing consciousness through mechanisms we could map and measure. Then I learned that consciousness can exist independent of physical substrate, that can shape matter. That belief, properly focused, becomes force. Your physics describes one floor of a building with infinite levels. I've simply learned to take the elevator.
The elevator metaphor is elegant, but it raises uncomfortable questions. If time can be manipulated through will rather than technology, then the paradoxes I contemplated theoretically become practical concerns. Travel to the past creates causal loops. Changing events creates contradictions. In my framework, these paradoxes suggest that backward time travel is impossible. Nature protects itself through self-consistency. How does your magic address what happens when you change something that has already occurred?
It doesn't address it, it creates it. Every time I've used the eye to reverse events or view alternate timelines, I've risked fracturing reality itself. The Ancient One warned me about this. She said time is like a river. You can swim against the current, but the current will push back. When I trapped Dormammu in a time loop, dying thousands of times to force a negotiation, I was violating the natural flow so severely that the fabric of the dark dimension itself began to destabilize. The cost was measured in iterations of my own death. Nature does protect itself. The protection is pain.
You died thousands of times, and yet you sit here, apparently intact. This suggests that death itself is not the terminus I assumed it to be. If consciousness can persist through repeated physical termination, then the second law of thermodynamics requires revision. Entropy should be irreversible. Information should be lost. But you retain memory across these iterations. You learned from each death and applied that learning to subsequent attempts. That implies information preservation beyond physical destruction. This is not physics as I understand it.
Information is never truly lost, Professor. That's one of the first things the mystic arts teach. The universe remembers everything. Every choice, every possibility, every path not taken exists somewhere in the multiverse. When I died in the dark dimension, my consciousness wasn't destroyed. It was reset to an earlier state while retaining experiential data. Think of it as a save point in a game you've never played. The rules seem arbitrary until you understand that the game was designed by something that doesn't share your assumptions about linearity.
The multiverse, I propose something similar. The many worlds interpretation suggests that every quantum measurement splits reality into branches where each possible outcome occurs. But this was mathematics, abstraction, a way to preserve determinism by acknowledging all possibilities as equally real. You speak of the multiverse as a place you have visited. a territory you have mapped. Tell me, Doctor, when you look across these branching realities, do you see evidence of underlying order? Or is it chaos all the way down?
I've seen 14,605 possible futures in a single sitting. I've walked through dimensions where time flows backward, where cause follows effect, where the concept of before and after has no meaning. And in all of it, I've found one consistent pattern. Consciousness shapes reality, but reality also shapes consciousness. The observer and the observed are locked in a dance that neither fully leads. Your determinism and my free will are both correct, Professor. They're just describing different scales of the same phenomenon.
Different scales. Explain this further. In my framework, determinism is absolute. Given complete knowledge of initial conditions, all future states are theoretically predictable. Free will is an illusion created by incomplete information. We feel free because we cannot see the causal chains that bind us. But you have seen 14 million futures. You have operated with information approaching completeness. Did that knowledge make you feel more free or less?
Less, infinitely less. When I looked at those futures, I saw only one where we defeated Thanos, one path through 14 million failures, and I had to guide events toward that single thread without revealing what I knew, because knowing would have changed the outcome. I became a prisoner of the information I possessed. Every choice I made was constrained by the destination I needed to reach. Your determinism felt like a cage I had built around myself. Free will, in that moment, was a luxury I couldn't afford.
And yet you chose that path. You evaluated 14 million futures and selected the one you preferred. Selection implies agency. Preference implies values. Even constrained by foreknowledge, you are still the consciousness making the determination. This is the paradox I never resolved. If the future is fixed, then your choice was inevitable. But if your choice was inevitable, then viewing the futures was also inevitable, as was my asking this question, as was your answer. The loop closes. The snake eats its tail. And yet we sit here experiencing the conversation as though we are directing it.
The experience of directing is the direction. That's the secret the time stone taught me. Consciousness doesn't exist outside the system, observing and manipulating. Consciousness is the system observing itself. When I chose the one winning future, I wasn't selecting from a menu of predetermined options. I was collapsing possibility into actuality through the act of observation. Your equations describe the options. My will describes the collapse. Neither is complete without the other. Physics and magic are the same thing seen from different angles.
This is either profound or meaningless. I suspect it is both. My entire career was spent trying to find a unified theory, a single framework that would encompass gravity and electromagnetism, quantum mechanics and general relativity. I failed. The equations refused to harmonize. Perhaps I was looking in the wrong place. Perhaps the unification I sought was not mathematical but experiential. Not an equation but a perspective. You have given me much to consider, Doctor. I am not sure I believe any of it, but I am no longer sure I disbelieve it either.
Uncertainty, that's where the real work begins. When I was a surgeon, I was certain of everything. My hands were steady because my mind had no room for doubt. Then my hands were destroyed, and I had to learn that certainty is just another form of limitation. The universe is stranger than your physics allows, Professor, but it's also stranger than my magic fully comprehends. We are both explorers in a territory that keeps expanding beyond our maps. The only honest response is to keep exploring, to hold our frameworks loosely, and to remain open to the possibility that everything we know is just the first chapter of a very long book. It was an honor to meet you.